You are listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Call Laura. I'm Ben.
I'm Eric. And I'm Jerry.
All right, and this is our second Ghost Stories.
Yes.
Our experimental, shortish Ghost Stories telling that we were going to practice for Cultober and see how it does.
Yes.
So last time it was Eric's turn. Now it's mine. And on this one, I'm covering the legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, which me and Jerry are only familiar with whatever, like for me, it's mostly the Tim Burton film and the old cartoon.
The Disney. Yeah. And that's primarily like what I find everybody's exposure is the one that was pinned to the Incredible Adventures of Mr. Toad, I think it was.
Oh, it was?
It was pinned to that. Yeah, because it was a short, although it was fairly long. And then, of course, the Tim Burton with Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci, which I really like. And by the way, Ray Park, the gentleman that plays Darth Maul, that movie actually has 3 Sith Lords in it.
Does it?
Yeah.
Really?
Emperor Palpatine plays one of the village elders. He's the guy that's having the affair with the servant girl Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
Count Dooku is the judge at the beginning of Sleepy Hollow that sends Johnny Depp to Sleepy Hollow. Christopher Lee.
What?
And then Ray Park, who plays Darth Maul, is the Headless Horseman after he's been beheaded, where he does all the weapon spinning and all the fighting and stuff.
Oh,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
No, I had no idea.
So yeah, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow actually contains 3 Sith Lords in
The
it.
dark side was strong with this one.
With that movie, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it.
Okay.
It was also, I should mention, it was written by Washington Irving. It was in a collection of short stories along with Rip Van Winkle.
Oh, okay. Oh, man. These are such good stories.
Sleepy Hollow was the longest of the short stories and is considered to be one of the most preeminent early American folklore tales.
Oh, how neat. Okay. Man,
Yeah.
we could have done this during our 4th of July special kind of. Well,
Yeah, but
that's
it wouldn't-
Tall Tales.
Yeah,
Not-
and it just wouldn't feel right.
No.
We
it
can do
wouldn't.
an episode on American folklore, but
Yeah.
this one is in October through and through.
Absolutely.
USA.
It even takes place in October.
Even better.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So the legend of Sleepy Hollow takes place in Sleepy Hollow, New York. That is an actual place along the Hudson River Valley. From where we sit, it's about a 10-hour drive, 45-minute flight.
How long is it by horse?
Longer.
Ooh.
It's in Westchester County, and I desperately want to go.
Ooh.
Absolutely. Take a trip to Sleepy Hollow.
Yes, it's a small village in that area, but it is a real place, and that is the village, that is the town that the place that is located in that Washington Irving used for inspiration. There are several other Sleepy Hollows throughout the United States, as everybody could probably guess, that do Sleepy Hollow events, but Sleepy Hollow, New York is where it's at.
That's the Sleepy Hollow.
So it takes place in the 1790s. We don't have an exact date. He didn't give one in the story. So this takes place a little bit after the Revolutionary War. So America is really just finding its footing. The main character everybody knows is Ichabod Crane. He's described as a rather tall, gangly man who is probably a hypochondriac. He's ugly.
Oh.
I don't know how else to describe it.
Oh, no.
So in the Tim Burton movie, they use his personality as more of the off-putting rather than his look. But in the story, Ichabod Crane is both.
Oh.
He is both neurotic and ugly.
Poor guy.
He's thin, big nose, kind of awkward-looking chap. In one story, I believe he is the school teacher, and not a popular one at that.
Okay, yeah. And in those days, I think school teacher would have been seen as more of a woman's job.
Yeah, and not to mention he was probably a disciplinarian, so the kids probably didn't like him either.
Yeah, I'd grow up not liking him.
But he grew to have a crush on this woman by the name of Katrina Van Tassel. Now, the Van Tassels were a Dutch family, and they were the bigwigs of Sleepy Hollow. Their family owned everything, more or less in one form or another. They also seemed to be kind of the heads of the cemetery it's called like the Dutch burial grounds in the story, but they seem to be kind of responsible for that as well. So Ichabod develops a crush on Katrina Van Tassel and goes to their family Halloween party, where he is confronted by a man by the name of Abraham Brom Bones Van Brunt. Jesus Christ.
Whoa, that's a name.
Can we hear it one more time?
Captain Deutschland.
Captain Deutschland.
Captain Deutschland.
No,
Okay.
Abraham Brom Bones Van Brunt.
Nice. Well done. Round of applause, everyone.
So he is kind of the local town ruffian, and he is Katrina's primary suitor, and it seems to be more or less the one that her father has promised off to. And it is at this party, confronted by Abraham, that we learn the tale of the Headless Horseman. So who was the Headless Horseman? Well, the Headless Horseman was widely considered, and especially by Brom, as I'm going to call him just to save my brain, Brom considered to have been a German Hessian.
Okay.
Now, a Hessian... German Hessians were soldiers that were called auxiliary, but were widely considered to be mercenaries. So what's the difference between an auxiliary and a mercenary? Thank you, Jerry. I'm glad that you asked. An auxiliary is a soldier for hire, but is hired out by their native country. So, like, if we're from the United States, if we're the United States auxiliary, then they can rent us out to other countries, and they pay our country for our service.
So professional soldier mercenaries.
Yeah. Now, a mercenary is a private individual that hires themselves out to other countries to fight. So these are the differences. But the thing is, this line got really blurry with the German Hessians, and the Hessians were originally from a specific region in Germany, but they became the word Hessian just became slang for these German soldiers that fought on Britain's behalf.
Okay.
The reason why many people and most of history now considers them to be mercenaries is because while there were strict laws to prohibit auxiliary from looting, this was not enforced. And it was known that it was not enforced. And Germany was not necessarily forcing these guys to go fight. So, so Germany was charging twice, which must have been a nice deal. Britain was paying Germany for their soldiers' uses, while also the soldiers were getting paid in the form of loot and other things that they could.
Right. Yeah.
Now, the Hessians were actually like good trained soldiers. They were renowned for their discipline, their brutality. Anybody that showed any form of like fuzziness in the ranks, whether it was disciplinarian, whether they weren't clean, or their drills weren't precise, or whether it went all the way up to like trying to abandon, trying to flee or desert, the punishment was pretty much death.
Ooh.
Wow.
They didn't fuck around.
Okay.
And what other forms of discipline were harsh, like beatings and floggings and so they were a brutal group.
Yeah.
And they didn't play well with others, so much so that a lot of the time the Hessian mercenaries, I'm calling them mercenaries, fought in groups of themselves. They didn't fight alongside other British troops.
Okay. They just did their own thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
They typically broke down into two different types that I saw listed that fought on the American grounds, and these were Jaegers and Hussars. Jaegers were often ground troops that specialized in sharpshooting. I found other accounts that called them really good horsemen, but I'm betting that our horseman, the Headless Horseman, was a Hussar. Now, a Hussar was a form of light cavalry that specialized in inter-conflict. So because of the link with the horse, I'm betting he was a Hussar and not a Jaeger. I found other people speculating that he was a Jaeger, but I think they're mistaken.
So the Jaegers were probably trained in both, but...
Correct, but Hussars specialized in cavalry.
Okay.
So if the ghost is bringing his horse with him, he's probably a Hussar.
It suggests a strong tie to the horse. Yeah.
Right. So the Headless Horseman was probably a Hessian Hussar that fought on the Battle of White Plains or shortly after. Now, the Battle of White Plains happened all along that Hudson Valley, and it was basically what happened that it's kind of a shame how much Americans are not up to date with the Revolutionary War. But one thing that we do know is that everybody knows is Washington's crossing of the Delaware, right?
Yeah.
We all know this. Now, how that happened was he got split off from the main force and had to keep retreating north rather than south. And it was this force of Hessian mercenaries combined with the British that forced this split.
Okay.
And so while Washington went up north, the rest of the Continental Army retreated south and gave up its Hudson Valley and Sleepy Hollow and the areas in it. But it also resulted in not like a British or German taking. It resulted in a 30-mile stretch of no man's land, because you also had the civilians that weren't giving a shit either. Were also throwing hands with the Germans and the British.
Oh, okay.
So the most concentrated fighting of Hessians was probably this 30 stretch mile, because there were no British troops, looting would have been at a primary.
No one's watching.
Right. So this is where you were probably find your Hessians. Reportedly, he got his head taken off by a cannonball. Now, that also speaks that he was probably on horse. Now, cannonballs can take off infantry heads. We've all seen the Patriot. Cannonballs bounce.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when you start putting it all together, cannonball to the head, the horse, I'm thinking he's a hussar.
Yeah.
And this is, I was telling Eric, I began this thinking that I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, the Hessian was killed, his head taken off by a cannonball, and the Van Tassels, whose family was, one of the established families there, buried him in an unmarked grave in the Dutch burial grounds.
Ah, okay.
Eric kind of maybe is getting what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the German Hussar or German Hessian would have taken this as a huge insult. He was a proud soldier, disciplined, specialized, and not only did they not bury him with his head, which a lot of cultures consider that to be asking for a haunting anyway.
Exactly.
But now he's buried on the grounds of his enemy, unmarked and uncelebrated.
Uncelebrated, not given the proper honors as a soldier.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so what Brom tells while he's telling this story is that after that, every night, but especially on the late October nights, the Headless Horseman rides that battlegrounds. What would have been that battlegrounds, in my opinion, that stretch of ground. He rides that grounds looking for his head and attacking anyone and takes their head as a replacement. But there is a safe grounds across this wooden bridge that, and this right here, okay, this is 100% pure speculation on my point. I found nothing to back this up. This is just my own opinion. I'm betting this wood bridge leads to the cemetery.
Ooh.
Now, conversely, wood bridges, covered bridges, it goes across water, and there's plenty of lore about spirits and crossing running water.
Yes.
So that could be it right there just by itself.
Right.
But?
Yeah, but there's the thought that maybe he can't go back to that cemetery until he's got his head.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, Brom teaches Ichabod this lesson. And Ichabod shrugs it off, or at least tries to, and he works up the courage to propose to Katrina. What got him to do this? Fellas. Be honest with yourself. If you're a 3, you're not getting an 8. If you work at it, and by it, I mean you might get a 6. But if you're like 6 foot, like 135 pounds, and you got a beak like a toucan, you're not getting Christina Ricci's, pals, okay? And it's fine. You don't want her. You're not going to make her happy. She's not going to make you happy. Find you a nice 5. You know what? If you're a 3, find you a fat chick. They'll make you happy. Anyway, she rejects him as everybody would expect them to. And he leaves. Now, in the party, they talk about how like it's safe to leave after sunup. So all of them are just content to party till daytime, till the sun rises, right? But Ichabod embarrasses himself by doing a thing he shouldn't have done in the first place, especially while you've got her suitor who is big and muscular, and he's telling this story, which apparently has got the whole crowd like, pick your moments, pal.
No one's neck is incredibly thick as Gaston.
Exactly. Like, if this dude, like, the time to propose to Belle is not if she's sitting here watching him do that big sound off, right?
Yeah.
You pick your time later. But anyway, Ichabod leaves. And anybody who knows what it's like to be in the woods or in a country road in late October, I cannot imagine what it would be like to ride your horse, which, by the way, his horse's name was Gunpowder. That was a plot point in the Tim Burton story that they got correct. Ichabod's horse was Gunpowder. Conversely, it was Abraham's horse. It was Brahm's horse that was named Daredevil, not the Hessians. So they did get that wrong.
Interesting.
But they got Gunpowder correct. And he's riding along when he encounters the Headless Horseman. It starts off with quiet clops in the fog, and then it slowly develops into a full-blown chase. Ichabod sees him carrying a severed head, and Ichabod makes a mad dash for the covered bridge. Whether he made it or not is never known. What was discovered the next day was gunpowder on the haunted side of the bridge, not the safe side. Grazing in the grass, Ichabod nowhere to be found, and a smashed pumpkin on the other side of the covered bridge. Ichabod was never seen or reported from again. Some people say that the Headless Horseman got him. Other people say that he just fled in terror and shame and relocated elsewhere. The Headless Horseman is just one of those stories that has stuck around in American folklore forever. And what's interesting is that whole story I told you about the Hessian and the headless one. Now, whether or not the Hessians or the Headless Horseman's head did come off by a cannonball, nobody knows. But I did find that there was record of a headless Hessian's body being found in that 30-mile stretch that was buried in the Dutch cemetery with no grave.
Oh my gosh.
So, could there have been an actual curse that led Washington Irving to write Sleepy Hollow? If you believe in such things, all the elements are there.
Yeah.
You have the evil man that was killed unceremoniously, buried in his enemy's lands.
Yeah.
No honors, missing a part of his body.
It kind of checks all those boxes that we were kind of talking about in the last episode, where if you're just not buried right, then you kind of pollute that space.
Yeah.
Or haunt it, or can't be put to rest.
It's your unfinished business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that is the legend of Sleepy Hollow, and what I believe to be the more or less true-ish real origins of the Headless Horseman.
Bravo. All right.
I think the whole story's true.
Yeah. I buy it. I buy it.
You know, I don't. You know, the Ichabod Crane and the Abraham Van Bones, Katrina Van Tassel, whether or not she was real and all that, maybe not. But the rest of that,
yeah,
I often wonder if mankind has a way of writing really horrific shit in fiction to make us feel better.
Oh, yeah. Kind of face up to the darkness in a safe setting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Through writing or the imagination. And then tell yourself it'll be okay.
Yeah. Like, I'll tell you another,
yeah.
I'll tell you another one that's haunted that kind of thought with me ever since I became aware of that story, is the Lions of Tsavo, the Ghosts in the Darkness.
Ooh,
and I may cover them one day.
Yeah.
Again, there's some lost files there, but
right.
but Patterson, the man whom had to fight these lions in a very literal sense, in his documentation, and there's no reason to believe, like, I really dislike this idea that everybody embellishes. I don't like that. I don't like any statement that's everybody does X.
Right.
Unless it's like some biological function. Don't get smart. But he claims in his documentation that the lions killed somewhere of upwards like 300 people.
Oh boy.
Now, modern people, in the modern day, they say it might have been more like 80.
Huh.
And I'm like, I'm sorry. What makes you believe that? Why do you and like the things that I found, the reasonings is that lions and animals just don't do that, right? They don't kill on that kind of a scale. It doesn't happen. It was too short of a time span for them to kill all those. That just sounds like cope to me.
It's a different time, different animals.
Yeah.
I think it just makes us nice, warm, and fuzzy to think that, oh no, we couldn't be killed at that kind of a rate that quickly. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but yeah, sure.
Like revisionist history.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
To make us feel better.
I think sometimes there's unexplainable, horrific shit in the world, whether it be paranormal or nature going, in my opinion, two lions killing 300 people qualifies as paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we tend to dumb that down in an attempt to make ourselves feel better.
I think that's bad for the story.
Me too.
I think it's bad for the story. I think it's bad for people.
Oh yeah. Yeah. In my opinion, you should approach the world that we're in with a healthy dose of fear in you. Like that's what
I don't think anybody long-term listening to us would be surprised by that.
I know. But I mean, it is practical. Like, so, if you've got like a real anxious friend that is just all jumpy about this and that, like they are going to be the first ones to spot the fucking lion in the night, most likely, because they're always on the lookout for that. It has its uses, guys.
That's right.
That's how I cope.
Find yourself an Adderall addicted, anxiety ridden gazelle and keep it close.
Hold it through its shivers and trust it when it says, hey, look out.
Yes.
Give it a thunder blanket.
There you go. Exactly.
But to also, like, when you dumb down the darkness, you can't help but dumb down the light.
Yeah.
When you do one, you automatically do the other.
Yeah.
You're
right. No, great. Oh, this was a good story. I learned a lot. I like a lot of this about the Hussar.
The Hussar,
yeah.
Hessian.
It's cool to know that there's a potential source that exists in our history for what could be haunting that area.
There was, I was surprised how much potential trueness that could have. Yeah. And if none of it's true other than the historical references, then good on you, Mr. Irving, for developing one hell of a short story.
Yeah. Told a good tale.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we went through this whole episode without one mention of the Doulahan. It kind of stands on its own, really.
Okay, so I was getting ahead of myself, and I'll say I was working on this with Eric, I was going to have a segment at the end where I found a few ghost type that I think it could be, including like the Doulahan, which is like a headless riding horseman from, is it Irish mythology?
I believe it is Irish, yeah.
But when I started looking at it, I'm like, I don't think it requires any special ghost here.
Yeah.
This just has all the makings of just being a straight up pissed off specter that did not like the way he died and the way he was treated after death.
Yeah. So he's just got the unfinished business and is basically like a vengeful spirit.
Yeah. Just a straight up vengeful spirit.
Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you, Ben. This was a great one.
This was fun.
It's a good American Horror Story.
It is.
Sure is.
All right. Eric, take us out of here.
Okay. So thank you guys so much for listening to the second Cult of Lore Ghost Stories. Stay tuned for more. This is a mini-series. Jerry is going to have a story for us next time. We don't quite know what it is. It's going to be as much of a surprise to us as it is to you. And while we're at it, like this series is part of a larger celebration of October, which we call Cultober. We're on the 4th year running. Every show in Cult Talk Net pretty much has got a special something or other coming out this month and has in the past. You can check that out at our Cultober Plus channel. that name. I'm sorry. So, yeah. Give us a follow, a like, subscribe, comment, whatever you feel moved to do this spooky season. And thank you so much for listening.
And let us know what you think of this new kind of format that we're playing with. It's not going to replace the old one, but it is something that we can do more often.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you guys so much. Happy Cultober. I've been Eric.
I'm Ben.
Don't lose your heads.